This is part 3 of our interview with Tom Zawistowski, the executive director of the Portage County Tea Party. Tom, recently you called into an investigation into alleged situation regarding the Portage County Commissioner's race. In a letter that you sent to the Portage County Sheriff Dave Doak and Prosecutor Vic Vellucci, you asked for an investigation into what you believe may have been a crime committed by Democrat Vicki Klein's. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that letter said and why it was sent?
Yeah. You know, as a community organization, we have people coming to us all the time with rumors, with questions, with accusations. And one of the things we found is that these things become like urban legends. They just continue. And because no one ever says, let's find out the truth. Let's ask the question. So we had been told during the summer by a high-ranking county employee that we could never have as many signs as the Democrats do because county employees help put them up and do things like that. We disregarded that. That was a rumor. Didn't have, we just said, yeah, okay, that's fine. We have no proof. Well, then this picture comes to me that looks like someone who's a county employee putting up a sign. And to us, that was like connecting the dots. It was enough for me to say, we need to ask the question. So Sal, I asked the question. And I'm very glad that the sheriff's investigation showed that there was nothing like that. Now it's case closed. Now when someone says to me, well, this is happening, I can say, no, it's not. The sheriff investigated, it didn't happen. The more we can do to kill these rumors and these things that are not true, the more belief people will have in our government and the better our government will run because it'll have the trust of the people.
In your letter, the wording seemed to be picked very carefully, as to not make a direct allegation that you believe that's what these folks were doing.
I didn't know.
But certainly it's insinuated that a crime may have been committed. Mm-hmm. Knowing the Tea Party had already endorsed Klein's running mate, Tommy Joe Marsilio, was there more of a political stunt to gain votes for your candidate?
Really, it wasn't. It really wasn't that situation. To me, it was a reaction to something that was happening on the field. You saw these signs, and you had this information. You're trying to connect the dots. Here's another part of this is really interesting. One of the local radio stations, outside the county, called me after they got that release because, and even the Record Courier, some of the other media, we just assumed that a county employee couldn't do something like that. Okay, and I said in the release, it would surely be illegal. When we started to then, what my letter did is cause people to actually look at the law, look at the county handbook, look at the revised code, things like that, and all of a sudden people started saying, you know what? I read the county handbook and it's not very clear what's legal or illegal. What can a county employee or a city employee do in an election? And that was kind of interesting because you make assumptions as a citizen. You think, well, clearly that would be illegal. And then you start to go into it and you find out it may not be. And so we need some clarification, and I hope in the future we will get a better understanding of what can people do. Because to us, there seems to be a conflict of interest. If you're working in the county and you're putting up signs for one side for the county commissioner, which we don't think happened now. There was an investigation. We don't think that happens. But if it were legal, if it did happen, wouldn't there be a conflict of interest for that? And shouldn't it not be legal? And that's something to be discussed by the county commissioners and people in the future. But it just shows how we as citizens are getting an education about how governance works. And it's not ever what we think it is. It's always something completely different.
Tom, in fairness, if this were a genuine concern just for the law, mm-hmm. why send a press release before you have results? I mean, one would think that sending that press release before an investigation is even conducted is a way of really getting your candidate's name in the media and saying, well, what if Vicki did this? Do you really want to vote for her?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we've learned, okay, because we've done it the other way in other circumstances, and what we've learned is you can't get the investigation unless you have the public pressure. In other words, we find that political people react to public pressure. And fortunately, our group is becoming big enough and important enough in the community that now we can raise questions that before we couldn't. And so I did that because we tried it about a month earlier with a different issue and nothing happened. So we felt we had to do something different this time, so we released it. And you know what? We got an investigation, we got an answer, we got it done quickly, and I was very pleased with the outcome.
So you truly don't believe that if this wasn't sent to the media as well, Sheriff Dave Doak would not have investigated?
I believe at the very least, he wouldn't have investigated so quickly. At the very least, it wouldn't have been done before the election because there would have been no pressure. And I really respect Sheriff Doak, and I think he did a great job. As a matter of fact, he went above and beyond. He came up with things to investigate that I didn't even think of. Okay, so when I met with him, I was really impressed with the thorough investigation he did. But yes, I think everyone's, in a political situation has to react when things are in the newspaper, and so I want it done before the election, and it's a pretty short time window.
Portage was the first to report last week the conclusion of the investigation by Sheriff Dave Doak, and that there was no laws broken. Mm-hmm. That in fact, whoever was placing those signs was not on county payroll.
Right.
They were not driving a government vehicle or using government gasoline.
Right.
They may or may not have been wearing a county vest. That's kind of unknown. But as Sheriff Doak told us, that would have been more of a policy violation for the county than a law broken.
Correct.
Knowing the outcome of the investigation, do you regret sending the letter, and do you think it may actually backfire and hurt your candidate?
No, I don't regret sending the letter at all. I think that we as citizens must question what's going on. We want fair elections. We want to understand what's legal and what's not legal. We want people to follow the rules. And one of the things we've found in this process is a lot of times even the people involved don't know what the rules are. A lot of times as we ask government questions, we get conflicting answers. I don't care if it's the Secretary of State or the Board of Elections or anybody. It's amazing to us how fluid the rules are. So it's a process. And as I said, I'm glad that nothing was wrong. And I'm glad we killed that rumor. Do I regret saying that? Absolutely not. Do I think it backfired on us? Maybe for some people. For some people, I think it was a big thing for them to see the Tea Party was standing up for them. Just like the thing we're doing with the poll watchers that we just announced on Portage News today.
That's my next question, actually.
Great.
On November 2nd, Election Day, you've joined with the Portage County Republican Party to quote-unquote observe at the polls. What's the purpose of this? And why the Republican Party?
Well, the Republican Party is not because that's what we wanted to do. It's because, again, we had to do it. And people say, oh, you guys are just backing Republicans. Listen, it's real simple. First of all, Craig Stevens from the Democratic Party has never returned a phone call of mine, a letter from me. He's never met me. He's never done anything with us. Okay? That's Craig Stevens' problem. We've invited him to interact with us from the beginning. Randy Manning from the Republican Party had enough brains to understand that when citizens want something, he should listen. Okay? But here's the deal. We've been out on these township meetings 18 times.
Let me stop you for just 1 second.
Yeah.
Craig Stevens, just for clarification,
Democratic chairman for
the Democratic Party.
Democratic chairman for Portage County. Okay, we've been out all year going to township meetings where we've had 200-300 people come in to learn about the Tea Party and what we're trying to do, and basically signing up to be part of our group. In those meetings, I always ask the question: are you concerned that your vote will not be counted, or that there will be voter fraud that will change the election, in the county, the state, federal level? Are you concerned about voter fraud? 75% of the people raise their hands. It's frightening. It's frightening. This is America. It's not Bolivia. We don't need Jimmy Carter to come in and authorize our elections. This is craziness. But that's what people believe, rightly or wrongly. As this kept happening, I felt we had to do something to change that. We had to change the perception. And we learned about this thing called poll watchers. Now, we knew about poll workers, and we know that Central Committee people work the polls. So we've had some of our people get on the Central Committee so they could work the polls. And to us, if you have Democrats and Republicans working the polls, the election should be fair. That makes sense. Then I found out, oh no, in the elections there are poll watchers, not workers, watchers. Poll watchers are usually attorneys that in presidential elections, the Democrats and the Republicans hire them to go make sure in certain places where there's questions about polling to make sure it's a fair election. One of the people we met with said they did this in Cleveland for the presidential election. They were there representing the Republicans. There were 2 Acorn people there. There were 2 SEIU people there. Okay, and there's a Democratic attorney there. Okay, to make sure the vote was okay. So when I heard about this, I said, I think if we could be poll watchers, our people would see with their own eyes that there's no problem in Portage County. They would be there observing, and they would find out there was no problem in Portage County. However, when I called the Board of Elections and talked to Linda about this, it became a lot more complicated. And so basically, what we found is we can't just be poll watchers. We need to have a party sponsor us. So either Democrats or Republicans have to sponsor us.